Hi, everybody. This is Brenda with my Mike Your Voice podcast. I'm just waiting for my guest to join me. I'm waiting for her to send me. Give me 1 second. Give me one moment. I'm trying to get Janie on here. Hey, Janie, you there? Hi, Janie.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just trying to get my screen here.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry that you don't have the app. Yeah, because I normally tell everybody let's do Riverside, but that's okay. We just have to do
Yeah,
yours here live on Instagram.
I misunderstood because you were saying live on Instagram, so I thought that you did the app through Instagram because people do that sometimes. So,
Yeah, no, but you're fine. You're looking gorgeous as always.
so are you. So are you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, once again, this is my Mike Your Voice podcast, and I have my friend with me today, Janie Wolf. And I'm so thankful that you're able to join us today. Um, and before we get started, tell people a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into the questions.
Oh, well, I am an actress and a writer, and I own an art gallery in Hoboken. I've worked with artists for a long, long, long time, doing PR and marketing and events and all kinds of different, sometimes multimedia events and curating things in non-traditional spaces. And I also love to help people have their voices heard. So I love the name of your podcast.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
also do a lot of youth and community development work. And so I do a lot of work with communities, trying to help people get more resources and trying to help people with things like food security and access to healthy foods and services that they might need to make their lives better, and
Mhm.
job training and education and all of those kinds of things.
Awesome. Well, that's impressive. Absolutely. Well, once again, I'm so thankful to have you with me today. And
I'm thankful to
that's
be
for
here.
yes. And the purpose of the My Mic Your Voice podcast is because it's like it says, it's my mic, but it's your voice. So we're here to uplift, inspire, and be positive for people. So that's the purpose of My Mic Your Voice. All right. So my first question to you, Miss Jamie, is you act, write, and run an art gallery. How do you do it all?
when when uh, when I was thinking about that question, I all I can tell you is that I am a person of faith, and whenever I feel like it's overwhelming, and even when I don't feel like it's overwhelming, I believe in praying constantly. And when it's really, really overwhelming or I'm feeling overwhelmed, I always ask for help and guidance to figure out what I need to be focusing on, what needs to be my next step. And it really does help. I mean, it helps me to have clarity and to not feel overwhelmed and to be able to see that not everything has to happen right now. Because as we know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there's a lot of things and people that are taking your attention, and we can't do it all at once. So we have to figure out what needs to happen right now, what can wait, what are the
Mm-hmm.
steps to make things a lot easier and a lot more smooth moving forward.
Okay, nice. Absolutely. I totally
There's a
agree.
lot of things and people that are taking your attention,
Hmm.
and we can't do it all at once. So we have to figure out
Okay.
what needs to happen right now, what can wait,
Yes.
what are the
Now,
steps to make things a lot.
easier and a lot more.
Now, let me ask you this. Which came first, the stage, the pen, or the art gallery?
That's a great question because for many, many, many years, I told people that from the time that I was really, really young, like a baby, I wanted to be an actress, which is true.
Mhm.
But a couple of years ago, I was looking through some old papers that were from the house that I grew up in.
Mhm.
And, just old things that I'd had since childhood that were in a box, and I was just going through them. And I found some writing. And it was from when I was really, really young. And
Mhm.
some of it was kid writing, but some of it was really showing the writing that I started to do later in life. Like there were little glimmers of it in there. And I thought, wait a second. And I started to really think back and realize that I'd been writing my whole life.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
even as a child, when I was learning how to read, like reading was so important to me. And then starting to put my own stories together. I grew up in a house that had a
Mhm.
barn, and I used to do plays in the barn, and I would write the plays and
Oh,
cast
okay.
people in them. And, one of the things about that, again with the gallery, is that I started working with artists um, of all kinds because I had moved to New York City to be an actress.
Mhm.
And as people know, you sit around a lot waiting to work. You need other people to do work. So I started producing things just to keep my
Mhm.
creative life alive. And as I was producing evenings of theater and inviting people, people started to come or introduce me to people who were artists of all kinds. So I'd always reached out to other artists for inspiration of different
Mhm.
types and done collaborative projects. So that's kind of how the beginnings of the gallery were in my early years of New York and the years after that. So I would have to say the first thing was the writing, and then
Mhm.
the acting sort of was dovetailing in with that, and then the sort of collaborations with artists leading up to the gallery. But it was really the writing that was the very, very first thing.
Okay. Nice. Awesome. And what's the coolest art piece you've ever sold from your gallery?
Oh gosh. I have to honestly say I love all of the artists who have work in the gallery, and I really do feel like each one is cool and wonderful and exciting and unique in its own
Mhm.
way. Trying to think. There was a piece, and it has a beautiful story behind it because
Mhm.
the artist was somebody that I met in 2019, and he is from the Dominican Republic. His name is Danilo
Mhm.
Piguero. But I met him when he comes back and forth to the United States because he's also lives up in the Bronx part of the year. And he was doing a
Mhm.
residency at an art center in Jersey City when I met him in 2019. And then we had all the shutdowns, and he had to go back to his own country. And then he had all of this artwork from that residency still in storage in the Bronx. So when he came
Mhm.
back finally in 2022, it was right before I was going to be opening the gallery. And he told me that he had all this artwork and he wanted to show it somewhere. And I invited him to bring it to the gallery. And he also loves to do portraits. So we did some
Mhm.
live portrait painting here. He did a portrait of me, which was
Mhm.
really a wonderful experience. And we invited people to see it. Um, but one of his pieces that was in the gallery then, when we first opened with his show, someone at that time saw it, and just I try to keep some work by all the artists in the gallery. If it doesn't sell or
Mhm.
if they don't need it back for some reason, I try to keep at least one or two pieces. And there was
Mhm.
this one piece that I had kept in the gallery, and someone came in last summer and told me that he had been looking at the piece since the gallery opened and he really needed to buy it. Like he loved it so much.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it was somebody that I knew,
Mm-hmm.
but I hadn't realized how in love with this painting he was. And he started to tell me
Oh,
the whole
okay.
story about why it meant something to him. And so I would have to
Mm-hmm.
say that was such a beautiful experience. And it really was exciting that this man just loved this piece so much and had his eye on it and he had to have
Mm-hmm.
it, and so it was just a really wonderful thing to have happen.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And you probably, I'm quite sure you probably enjoy his story of the reason why he wanted the painting. So, since he was so passionate about it.
Well, yeah, and I find that with, different people who come into the gallery that they will
Hmm.
literally they will have such a personal connection to the work and to the artist and to what the piece is. And sometimes, it's something that they have the opportunity to meet the artist, and so the connection is made even deeper. But sometimes it's just
Hmm.
literally they're walking by, they fall in love with something, and they have to have it.
Hmm. Yeah. I get like that sometime when I'm out window shopping. I'm like, oh, I got to go inside of here and get that. I got to have this piece. Yeah, so I can understand that. Now, what's more fun? Um, um, do your art ever sneak into your stories or your scripts? Do you like ever like put pieces of your art into things you're writing or filming or?
I actually do. It's very interesting because I have been writing for a long time, and I do sometimes write, all kinds of things. I write technical
Mhm.
writing as well and grants and things like that, but I do a lot of creative writing. I write a lot of plays, screenplays, stories, poetry. And
Mhm.
yes, the art does come in sometimes, and I also create art sometimes myself that I add my writing into. So a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
times if I'm creating an art piece, some writing might find its way into the art piece itself. Or
Mhm.
for example, when I first opened the gallery, a poem that I wrote was something that had come out of a collaborative project that I had done with another
Mhm.
artist who also has work in the gallery. But at that time that we did the collaboration, I hadn't yet opened the gallery. And I did this
Mhm.
collaboration with an artist who I knew and a friend of hers who owns a dance company. And the dance company was doing a piece around this artist's work, and they asked me to collaborate with them. And one of the things that happened during the collaboration is that I wrote a poem that I ended up performing during the piece. And when I opened the
Okay.
gallery, I used a line from that poem as
Mm.
just something that when I was sending out the invitations, I didn't really think of it as a title of a show.
Mhm.
It was kind of like I'm opening the gallery and that was what I put on the invitations. But someone
Mhm.
who reviewed the show named the show what I had put on the invitations. And so I was like, oh, wait a minute, that is the name of the show. And then after that, I started every time I opened a show, I would use a line
Mhm.
from one of my poems. So they kind of go back and forth, that the art goes into the writing, but the writing goes into the art as well.
Got it. I bet you that was cool and exciting. Yeah. I write too, so I have like 4 notebooks full of writings. So I'm trying to do a book, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I want to see
we'll,
that.
see- we'll see what happens. Yes. So what's more fun, playing a character or creating one?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. That's a really interesting question to answer. I think for me,
Hmm.
playing a character is a completely immersive experience. And
Hmm.
it's something that is one of the reasons why I love acting so much, because it really, in my opinion, acting is really an art form that brings every aspect of art and the person and life together. And
Mhm.
the the way that I do my, my character work is really immersive. And so, I'm really living the character. I'm really, trying to think like them, trying to write like them, trying to, really discover who this person is, the rhythm of their
Mhm.
language. Um,
Oh, okay.
so that to me is probably a really, really special, unique experience that
Mhm.
writing is very different because writing is much more solitary. Um, and it's also something that I don't know how to describe it. You can actually, as you start to do the work of the writing, it kind
Mhm.
of takes you on this journey that you start to learn about the character. Like they start to speak to
Okay.
you and speak through you in a
Mhm.
way, at least in my experience. Um,
Mhm.
so I will start to learn about characters as I'm writing. And that's a wonderful, unique experience as well, because sometimes I'm surprised or sometimes I'm, finding out
Mhm.
something that's really interesting. But I would have to say that the most immersive for me is the creating the character and playing the
Okay.
character.
Okay. That's not going to be fun. Creating something, then acting it out. I know I had an uncle. He was writing out this play, and I would help him write the play. And I'm like, we need to start acting this stuff out, not just write it down. We need to start acting it out. So who knows? One day the silence is gone, so there's no telling what's going to come out this mouth. You just don't know. Now, what TV shows or movies inspire you, Jamie?
Oh, that's something that's really interesting because I love old movies,
Mhm.
like
Me too.
historic films. I love,
Hmm.
things that are period films. I
Hmm.
also really love films that are from the time when I was growing up. And I grew up in Massachusetts, and my parents were from New York originally, and
Hmm.
they were both really involved, like they loved art. They were always, bringing us to museums, bringing us to performances, bringing us to art house, places to see movies
Hmm.
in Cambridge and these really groovy places. So there were times that, like there are some films from that period of time when I was growing up that I would be like, wow, like this is really something that I want to be a part of. I want to do this. I think, and this is going to be a strange way to answer this question, but I think you might
Hmm.
understand it. Um, I was really inspired by live performance and film and
Hmm.
television because of the quality of even some of the comedies that were lighthearted comedies and things.
Hmm.
Some of the acting and the work that was being done on some of these sitcoms and things, like they were amazing. And
Hmm.
I had never really thought about being an actor as a career when I was a child until this one family friend who I knew really well told us that she was an actress and she was in a
Hmm.
play, and we went to see her, and I was like, wow, like I could actually do this. Like she was a normal person who was doing these wonderful things that I saw,
Hmm.
when we went to the theater, when we went to the movies, or when we were watching TV. So I think it
Hmm.
was really the quality of some of the films, and there were so many that were just so amazing. And as I said, my
Hmm.
parents would bring us to a lot of different things. And so I had a really wide, knowledge of what was going on in both historic films and television, but also in the present day of that time and as I grew up.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I like the old movies too. I like the old black and white movies. There's just something about the women back in the day in the old movies, especially the Shirley Temple movies. I used to love to watch Shirley Temple and Audrey Hepburn. I just like old movies. So it's just I like the way they dress. I
Yep.
get a lot of ideas from going back and look at the style. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like coming back in style, in this time. And I'm like, but I just, back then the women were just so classy. Oh my God, I just love the way they dressed. In the old movies. It's just something about the old black and white movies I used to love. Turner Classic. You ever watch Turner Classic?
Yes.
Where they show a lot of the old movies. Yeah, that's why I used to love to watch Turner Classic movies. Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm. Now, what's your creative reset when you hit a wall? Like, how so do you ever get that writer's block or?
It's very interesting because I've found that, and the answer to that question, it's sort of two part.
Mhm.
I use the expression hitting the wall sometimes when I'm dealing with things that are either things that I don't really want to do, like when I'm really like cleaning or things like that.
Mhm.
I get to a place and I'm like, oh, I'm hitting the wall. I got to take a break. And I also use it when I'm feeling, like sometimes I'll be working on something like, technical writing or whatever, and it just starts to
Mhm.
get sort of exhausting in my brain to be thinking
Mhm.
about it. So I have to take a break. I find more that sometimes when I'm working on creative things, I don't
Mhm.
really hit that same kind of a wall, but it may be. It's just that I like it so much that if I need a break, I just take a break and what
Mhm.
I always do when I'm hitting any kind of wall is if I can, if and even sometimes if the weather isn't good, but I love to walk, and so I walk
Mhm.
everywhere. I have to give you one break because there's this lovely young man who comes by every day to say hello and give me a hug, so I'm just going to give him a quick hug.
Okay.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Mhm.
Sorry about that. He comes by every day, and
Oh, that's
if I don't give him
awesome.
his hug, he'll wait.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah, give him his hug. Absolutely. That's nice. He come by every day to see you. I love
Every
it.
day, every day. And if I'm not, I'm right by the door right now, but if I'm not by the
Uh-huh.
door, he will literally like knock and he'll bang on the window. Come inside, he'll be looking for me. So,
Oh, that's so sweet. That's nice. Well,
yeah,
tell
it's
him I say
really
hello
fun.
next time he stop by.
Um, But going back to your question, I love to walk and I walk everywhere. I do anyway because I don't have a car and I live in New Jersey, which a lot
Mhm.
of people need a car out here, but I don't have one. So I walk everywhere out here that I can possibly.
I love to
Um,
walk.
and it also
Mhm.
really gives me a great way to clear my head and to think about things and to
Mhm.
be positive about things or to get positive about things if I'm hitting a
Mhm.
wall or
Yeah.
frustrated. So taking a
Yes. I
nice
love to walk
walk.
too. Yeah. That's me. I love to take nice walks, and then I also like to sit out by the water. That's when I can do the most reflecting, is out by the water. And that's when I
Me
get,
too.
a lot of great ideas and things like that. It's just so peaceful here in the water and my thoughts. And it's like I'm so inspired. Sometimes, even at night, I can wake up out of my sleep and I'm like, oh, I got to write this down. Where's my phone? I got to put this into the notepad on my phone. Or if I'm out somewhere, I have to write it on a napkin. It's just like I'm always writing down.
I do that too, and
Yeah.
I have all these little scraps of paper.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I keep them
Yeah.
too, and I'll find them
Me
sometimes and
too.
incorporate them into things later.
Exactly. That's exactly what I do. I'm like, oh, I got this. Oh, I got this. Well, let me add this to this right here. Well, let's put that down here and move this up here. That's how I do it with my writing. So it's like sometimes I can't even sleep because I can hear my own thoughts. You ever do that? Well, sometimes you can't sleep. It's just like you just know what you're thinking, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get up and I gotta write this down. It's just like I do that all the time. So that's why I know I'm like, I love to write. It's just so soothing for me. I just love it. Mhm.
I agree. I agree. And I do the same thing. I
Yeah.
sometimes I wake up and I just scrawl something down because I know I won't sleep unless I get it down.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. So I know you was talking about the earlier the guy who liked the one piece that you had in the gallery. You ever had a piece that you wanna sell, but then you just feel like you just can't get rid of it. You just can't let it go.
That's just such a great question. And it's actually, in a way, one of the reasons why I opened the gallery because I
Hmm.
love to collect art, and I love to support artists. And it got
Hmm.
to the point that I didn't have any, and this is going to sound funny, but it's actually the truth, and I'm not exaggerating. I didn't have any more wall space in in my home to hang any more art. And
Hmm.
so when I opened the gallery, I was thinking this is great because now I can bring in more pieces by more artists and
Hmm.
more pieces by the artists that I already love, that I would love to be able to
Hmm.
collect, but I have no place to put them. Um,
Yeah.
there have been a few times that I have brought in artwork into the gallery and I told the artist when they showed it to me that I was going to buy it, that there was no
Hmm.
way that I could sell that. And that happened when I first opened the gallery. There were a couple pieces that came in and I told the artist, I
Hmm.
said, look, before opening night, I'm buying these because it would break my heart if somebody wanted to buy
Yeah.
them. So I said, bring them into the gallery. We'll hang them, but they're sold already. It's done.
Hmm. Yeah, I could just see you now, them
That's
walking out with that painting you wanted so bad.
Well, and that's one of the things when I'm, looking at artwork for the gallery
Hmm.
that it's very difficult for me sometimes because as I said, I love all the artists who have worked here. And so I really think it's all very special. And it's literally it's gotten to the point that I just don't have room, or I would be probably buying everything that walked in the door.
Hmm. Well, you already said you don't have any wall space at home, so
Well,
so I could
somebody
just imagine.
suggested to me
Hmm.
that I could sell some of my own personal collection and then, buy more. And I said, I can't give it up. I bought it because I loved it so much.
I know, right? So that goes with my question. It'd be hard for you to let that piece go. Well,
Exactly.
I bet you your home is beautiful because I could see some of the pieces you put up, and from some of the shows you do, it'd be some nice stuff. Hmm. And everybody always seem like they're so nice in your gallery. It seemed like you. I was watching. I think you had a video you uploaded where like you had somebody playing music inside the gallery. You do that often?
Yeah, I do that whenever I have events. I do that
Hmm.
as much as possible. There are these
Hmm.
wonderful, in Hoboken, there's a college called Stevens University.
Hmm.
It's an engineering and other things as a university. And one of the
Hmm.
things that even if they're engineering students, but they also do have an art department, But there's so many artists and performers who go to Stevens. And they started walking in the door when I first opened the gallery and asking me if I was ever interested in doing music. And I consider all types of art to be art. And I've always done
Mhm.
these multimedia events and working with so many different types of artists. And I also do
Mhm.
consider culinary art to be an art. And so
Okay. Okay.
so I do sometimes events with food or, wine
Mhm.
pairings or things like that. But definitely music, performance. I've had people who've done performing of all kinds here and readings of
Mhm.
things, poetry, so it's short stories. So I do try to do that on a pretty regular basis.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, because I was listening. I was like, "Ooh, they sound good." I don't know what the young man was playing, but it was a guy. It was like he was sitting by your door or window or something. So, and he was playing, and I was like, "Ooh, he sound good." Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Mhm.
there's different artists who, as I said, they started were performers that they started coming in the door and asking me if I was interested in
Mhm.
doing live music, and I was so open to it, and they all turned out to be wonderful. And then they started bringing their friends,
Yeah.
and then their friends would come and ask me, and then
Mhm.
someone else came in a
Mhm.
couple months ago. I think it was last fall. Someone
Mhm.
came in and was asking if I ever did experimental music here because he had heard that I did.
Mhm.
And I thought that he wanted to know when the next performance was. So I started to tell him
Mhm.
basically what I was just describing to you. And then he said,
Mhm.
"Oh, well, the reason I'm asking is because I have this experimental group and we'd love to play here sometime if you'd be interested." And so I invited them
Okay.
to come in and play, and they were wonderful too. They just played actually again a couple weeks ago at another, it was Garden
Mhm.
State Art Weekend a couple weekends ago. And they were here. One of them did a solo set one day, and then the group did an
Mhm.
afternoon set together. But they had played the first time last fall during something called the Hoboken Artist Studio Tour,
Mhm.
and that was wonderful. But I've had
Oh,
bands
okay.
in here. I've had people launch music in here. So,
Well, you sound like you got enough space in there, Ben, where you can have all of that going on. Yeah.
well, it's funny because some of the I always joke with the artists when they come in,
Mhm.
the performers, because we'll be
Mhm.
talking about stuff, and I'll say, look, just tell me what you need. We'll figure it out if I need to move things around.
Mhm.
And it always seems like the space just kind of embraces people. Like it just makes space somehow for them.
Mhm.
Because sometimes I'll say to people
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I've had whole bands in here," and they're like, "Where?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It just works somehow."
Yeah, because like I said, the one video you posted, I saw a couple people in there with music instruments. So I was like, okay. And they sounded good.
Yeah.
Sounded like it was a like cozy environment, to look at art pieces. And now I know you say you just bring in the antiques just, for the gallery. So do anybody offer to buy your antiques? Do you sell any of your antiques?
I don't sell any. People always want to buy them. Like
Mhm.
I had
Okay.
someone the other day who literally was, and they were also interested in
Hmm.
buying some of the art, but they were asking me about other, some of the antique pieces as well. And so I was like,
Hmm.
nope, the art is the only thing that I sell. The
Hmm.
antiques are really to create an environment, and also because I look at design and art
Hmm.
to be intertwined and important
Okay.
to consider together as art.
Okay.
And creating an environment and creating a space and an
Hmm.
installation is what I really tried to do in the gallery to help people see how you can live with art, how you can live with beautiful design pieces,
Hmm.
And I also have a big thing about sustainability. So I like
Okay.
to show people, like, you can refurbish things, you can use old
Mm-hmm.
things. You don't have to be constantly getting something new and throwing it away. You can
Mm-hmm.
actually use and reuse and recycle and make something beautiful. So that's another
Mm-hmm.
whole part of it also.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Well, it sounds like it's gorgeous. Like I said, I look at your artifacts from your videos and the posts you make, and I wanted to ask you. You always say the marvelous. What is the marvelous? So I said I'm going to ask you that.
What was that?
You always mention the marvelous. What is the marvelous?
I can't. I'm sorry. I
On your post, you always mention the marvelous. What is the
Oh,
marvelous? You always say
marvelous.
the marvelous.
Oh,
Yes.
marvelous. Oh, that's so. I was like, what? What do I always say? I got you. Okay, there's a whole thing, and this has to do with really something that God has put into my heart to do for people
Mhm.
is to be an encourager. And
Oh, okay.
I really feel like there's something important about celebrating people and
Mm-hmm.
talking about them in the highest possible way.
Mm-hmm.
I started to develop this thing, and it was pretty early on when I was,
Mm-hmm.
starting to do Instagram and whatever, that in the very beginning in Instagram, I was literally commenting on everybody's posts, like everything. And it was actually really funny because Instagram literally like censored me or whatever. Like they made me that I couldn't do anything for 24 hours because they said that I
Me
was
too.
commenting too much and that I was
Yeah.
a bot. And and it was just because I was literally trying to like encourage people and say nice things.
Mm-hmm.
So then I had to come up with some other way of being encouraging. And so that was what I came up with, was to be able to,
Mm-hmm.
anytime I mention someone, if
Mm-hmm.
it was a woman, and I'm very conscious about the way that people feel about how they're represented. So if I know that
Mm-hmm.
someone is a woman who identifies as a woman, I will call her beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I will say, the beautiful, and then whatever the person's
Mm-hmm.
tag is, like I do with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and I will say the marvelous because it's your podcast. So it's your marvelous podcast. It's not just your podcast, it's the marvelous
Oh, okay.
podcast that you have.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll use other words, but those are the words
Mm-hmm.
that I use the most. Like wonderful, I'll use for men
Mm-hmm.
usually. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it all depends on the man. It all depends on what he's doing and what,
Yeah.
how, if I
Yeah.
know that he wants to be identified in a certain way, I might say he's a beautiful
Mm-hmm.
artist. Um,
Okay. Gotcha.
or I might say his marvelous art, or the
Mm-hmm.
beautiful art by the marvelous artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's always about describing people in the highest possible way that I can,
Mm-hmm.
giving them
Okay.
superlatives.
Because I know I see that on a lot of your posts. I'm like, well, shit, I'm gonna have to ask her what is the marvelous? Because it'd be even when you go to the restaurant, you'd be like the marvelous this, and I'm like, okay. So now I understand the marvelous. Okay, I got it now.
Yes, yes. And the thing for you to understand too, it's
Mhm.
not, I don't know how to say this. Um, I don't want this to sound in any way like I'm saying that if I don't write
Mhm.
about somebody, they're not marvelous. But I am very, very careful about who I post
Mhm.
about and because I have the blog as well, so I write in the blog.
Gotcha.
And I'm really, really careful about who I write about and who I post about
Mhm.
because I don't charge for
Okay.
my blog or my Instagram posts. And
Mhm.
so part of my brand is that I only post about people who truly I believe are excellent and wonderful and marvelous. So, um, and it doesn't mean like if I haven't posted about you, it just means that I don't, I haven't had the opportunity to do something with you or whatever. So the reason
Mhm.
that I say that is that I don't want people to be like, well, she never said that about me, because I didn't have the opportunity. But
Mhm.
there was actually a really funny story about that because people started going places based on what I was
Mhm.
writing about, and and literally like it was a very funny experience because I became an quote unquote influencer
Mhm.
without trying, just because I was
Mhm.
really, really careful about who I was posting about and what I was, making sure that if I couldn't say they were marvelous, I would not post about them, and that's
Mhm.
another part of what I my business is called the Good News Foundation, and I always tell people it's only good news. I don't write about anything bad. So
Mhm.
if I go somewhere and it's not great, I just won't post about it. Because I don't
Right.
believe in being like, oh, I went to this place and it wasn't that good, and I just won't do it.
Mhm.
I don't believe in that.
Right.
Maybe they were having a
Right.
bad day when I was there. Who knows? And so I definitely only post about what I truly believe is marvelous and beautiful and wonderful.
Okay. Well, awesome. Well, awesome. Well, this is my last question for you. If your life were a movie, what would be the title?
Ah, the road home. The road home.
The road home. I like that. I like that. The road home. There's no place like home. Mm-mm.
Yes.
No place like home. I like that. The road home. Now I'm gonna be looking for you to write something about that. The road home.
I
I'll
think
be
I
looking for
will. I
something
think
on your
you've
page about
inspired
that.
me.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely have to do this again, Janie. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be with me today. I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot from you. And like I say, I'm always commenting and stuff on what you write, so I appreciate what you write. And like you said, it's always positive and good. So that's what drew me to you, as a matter of fact, because you always write positive, good stuff, and I like what you write, and I like what you post. So keep it up.
Well, and I feel the same way about you, and I'm just so grateful and delighted that we had this time together today. Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
for all your efforts
absolutely.
and invitation and help and patience.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again. Absolutely. And I'm gonna be looking for you to post something on your gallery so I can listen to the music and everything. So I'll be looking and
Wonderful.
I'll be commenting. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you here this way. And thank you again for taking the time out of your day to be with me today. I appreciate it. And you enjoy the
Thank
rest of your
you.
day, Jamie. You're welcome.
And you
Bye.
too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Let me see. I never know how to stop this thing, so give me a moment. Okay.